Yep. We're now going to be judging the travel category, which is sponsored by Camera Electronic. So thank you to them. Our judges today, we've got Chris Anderson in position 1, Mike Langford in 2, Jackie Rankin in 3, Mel Anderson in 4, and David Evans in 5. And we've got an excellent group of we've got Adam Horan, Leslie Downey, Tony Holden, Selena Rollerson, and waiting to back up our judges. Travel photography involves an area's landscape, people, cultures, customs or history. It may express or reference the feeling of a time and place, or simply portray a land or its people in its natural state. All destinations will be considered in the light of being travel photography, even if the location in the photograph is the same as where the print judging is being held. Entries should communicate some aspect of travel, but the judges will be asked to interpret this broadly. Entries into this category may be commissioned or self-commissioned. There should be no attempt to misrepresent reality by manipulating the image contents, context, or meaning. Composite images and photos with visual special effects, borders and added backgrounds are not permitted. Post-production is limited to minor adjustments such as spotting, dust, scratches, dodging and burning, adjusting tonal and colour values. Elements or areas within the image cannot be removed or covered, nor new elements added. Cropping the image and perspective correction are permitted. HDR, stitched panoramas, and focus stacking using multiple exposures taken at the same location at the same time are permitted, provided these techniques comply with the category for authenticity. So how's that? Everyone right? Very good. Rightio. Is everyone ready out the back? Great. Okay, let's start with our first image, please. Can we have a blank screen, please? Well, it would have been challenging here too. Sorry, judges. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. This image has scored 76. And a quick comment from David, please.
There just needed to be more going on within the beautiful frame of the lanterns. There's not really too much happening. They're just kind of chatting, and there needs to be more.
Excellent. Thank you. Next print, please. This image has scored 75. And a comment from Mike Langford.
Yeah, the lighting's just a little bit flat. Visiting places.
Excellent. Thank you. Next print, please. By majority, we have a silver award of 80. David, you're on the 80, so
I just want to say, well seen with the composition of the background, but also the timing is really quite exquisite with the exact placement of the three and the one looking at the camera, and they're both wearing the same coloured shirts, and it's really neat. It's really, really nice photograph.
thank you. Next print, please. This image has scored 79. David, you're on 78?
I like the feel of the image. I like the way it's printed, but I just can't see anyone. There's only one face I can really see clearly, and the others just seem to be turning around or obstructed. And I think with that many people in a scene, I just think the timing just could have been better, because there would be so much opportunity with a scene like this.
Thank you. Next image, please. This image has scored 76. And Mike, would you comment?
The focus led the eye further into the frame, which is quite important to actually not just stop at the front, but actually tell the story of going through it.
Thank you. Next print, please. This image has scored 72. And we might get a comment from Jackie.
We're looking for, I think, a little bit more than just a straight-on shot of what you can see from where you are. It's more of a feeling and a sense of place that perhaps an image will take you into that next scoring range.
Very, very quickly.
Even if it was just waiting for that cloud behind the flame, so it was light against dark.
Excellent. Thank you. Next image, please. scored 76. We have a challenge from David on 82. I got to admit, you're out on your own there. You've got 72, 73, 77.
Okay. I'll have a crack. I really enjoy the subject's expression. It's sort of almost the maturity beyond his years, but I particularly like the pattern of the umbrella and the colours that match in with the tones in his face. So I like those light patches behind because they balance quite well with the light on his face. I like the sternness that has been captured, you know, in his eyes, and I just think it's been really well handled and a really nice balance to the composition. I'm a bit surprised it scored as low as it did.
Okay, Mike, sitting on 73.
Yes, 73. All the words you've just described that would suggest professional practice, and I think it's a very strong professional practice. To take it further from that needs something that elevates it. You didn't mention one, so I figured that you didn't see what I didn't see.
Chris, you're keen to say something?
I will say I think it's a well seen image, and I put it at strong professional practice. I want to see something. I want to see some more innovation in an image, and this feels like a travel image that I feel like we've seen before, and it's really well handled and well shot. But I want to see a little more.
David, can you write a reply?
Just to be clear, the special thing was the light coming through the umbrella, but if it's not seen as special in the eyes of the other judges, that's fine.
Next, well, David, your score stays the same. Everyone else can rescore if they see fit. And it stays the same at 76. Next print, please. This image has scored 77. And Chris, do you want to have a comment, please, on 77?
So yeah, I enjoyed the kind of mix of old and new in this, where you've got people in traditional clothes, and you've got that the one off to the side on his phone with a big smile on his face. So that was really enjoyable. I thought this was again another high professional standard image. So well done.
Thank you. Next print, please. This image has scored 75. And Mike, please.
The biggest problem with this image is the printing. It's printed far too light. It needs mood. It needs darkening down. If you're putting this into appers, I'd definitely suggest making it much moodier.
Excellent comment. Thank you. Next print, please. This image has scored 76. And we have a challenge from Chris on 83. You actually have scores from 70 to 77.
All right, I got some work to do. I really that the photographer has found a way to mix old and new in here. An original structure that looks like, I'm assuming it's been there for a very long time. It's got marks on it like there's the evidence of age, and you can feel like it was constructed by hand, and it's seen generations of people go through. And it's nestled inside of these beautiful, harsh, modern lines where it's the gray and the kind of transition from light to dark and kind of the design of it is, I think, really beautiful. It's I love the contrast between the kind of the chaos and the grittiness of the old structure versus the new one. So for me, this is a really well seen example of a place that has a mix of those two. Now, I would love to hear some other opinions about it too.
I'll ask Mel on 72.
Yeah, I put this in professional practice. I certainly do enjoy the framing. I think the framing is quirky, positioning it there. There was a couple of things. I think I wanted, if you're going to represent a graphic image to me, then I'm looking for that crispness and that clarity. I'd like the print quality to, I'd like to bring the highlights down a little bit more in the sky, get a little bit more depth through there. I'd love to see that corner edge, you know, just on that, the right-hand area, or just that edge to bring it in. I'd love to see the perspective just adjusted a little bit, just so that you've got those crisp graphic lines, because we're looking at a graphic element. So for me, it's that in professional practice, but I certainly did enjoy the elements that you found.
Jackie, on 77? Sort of.
Okay. Yeah, the blown out sky is probably the thing that stopped me from wanting to go a little bit higher because it's distracting. I mean, it helps to frame that older structure. As far as crispness goes, I felt this was crisp exactly where it should be. If you look at the tiniest detail at the top of that tower, you can see every single brick. You can see every single line. That's been handled very carefully. As far as kind of the off to one angle, there's an element of being off balance that is challenging, and I don't mind that this is making me feel odd when I look at it because that tower is leaning a little tiny bit. So some of those things that distract you, to me, I appreciate, and I like what it's doing to the image, and I like how that's making me feel when I see it. So for me, this sits in silver really nicely. I'd love to see a couple of you come up and join me and get this print up to silver.
Okay, so Chris, your score of 83 stays. Everyone else can rescore if they wish. Well, it's crept up to 78. Jackie, could you just say something into your mic? We're having a few problems here, and I just want to see.
Yes, they are. Now
It
it's
is
sounding
working.
better. It's sounding
That's better,
Oh, you
yes.
put the volume up over there. That's very good.
Thank you. Okay. Next print, please. This image has scored 75. And a word from Mike Langford on 74.
Images like this, festivals, they need points of focus. This lacks that. That would have really elevated it. The lighting, the position of the person is great, but you just need some action.
Thank you. Next image, please. This image has scored an average of 77. And we have a challenge from David on 83. We go from 73 up to 77.
I really enjoyed figuring this one out. You know, just when it came around and immediately thinking of rays of the sun coming in and all that. And it was really pleasant to get up there and think, oh my God, they're guns. And it's a reflection, and it's really quite clever, the way that the framing has been duplicated, you know, at the right position of the reflection. And it speaks of the place really well, because you've got the combination of the buildings and the patterns and the guns, and it tells a lot about this place in terms of the history. And I just think that the composition has also been handled really nicely on the third, with the third at the top, and it's very deliberate. It's quite restrained, a little bit bright on the highlights on the left, but I think I forgive that because I really enjoy the way the whole thing feels.
And Chris on 73?
So for me, your eye is brought in, using those guns, it's really brought into that tower in the back, and everything in this image is really wanting you to focus your attention there. But when you get there, there wasn't enough for me to go, oh great, thanks for taking me there. It was kind of a duplicate of the more saturated tower on the left. So I wanted to see something that was going to tell me more about this place. I found the highlights on the left distracting, so it's particularly where those domes are, right at the left-hand side of the frame, that kind of clipped out, so there's definitely some things that needed to happen. For me, the left third doesn't support it. The strength is in the right 2/3, and so I kind of wonder how this would look a bit differently. But I'm listening, and I want to hear more about it.
Mike on 77? Can you guys talk a little bit closer into the... It's not working?
No, it's just not on.
Just use this one for the moment. Mike, would you mind just having a word?
Hello? Yeah, you can see that one. Hello, 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 hello.
It's that particular mic, I think. So just use that one for the moment. Okay. All right. Yep, Mel Anderson.
Yeah, I would agree with Mike's comments as well. The other thing that I would love is, you know, we're looking at primarily a graphic image, an architectural image. So I want those lines, I want that perspective to be straightened, because at the moment I just feel like I'm just sitting awkwardly. So that to me is I'm drawn straight into that cross in that area, and it's just sitting not quite right. So I'm sitting in.
David on 83, right of reply, please.
Look, I think it's a bit more deliberate than than has been made out. That's my opinion. So the perspective and the height and everything. If you went lower, you'd get more of that blown out sky, etc. I don't think the device works very well if the left-hand side isn't in it. But we're a panel, so you know.
Okay, and 83 stands. If everyone else would like to rescore. This image has now scored 78. Next image, please. This image has scored 74. And I'll ask Mike, yeah? Use Chris's if you don't mind.
Yeah, look, more attention to detail in the printing. The highlights are burnt out, the blacks are blocked up. If you could probably get another 10 points out of this if you printed better.
Thank you. Next print, please. Have a silver award at 82. Mel, would you like to make a comment? You were sitting on 83.
Yeah, I think the composition in this is really lovely. You know, bringing us up on that right hand side, the detail, the foreground, the delicateness of the tree, the balance of that of the slope on the left. I think it's a lovely composition. The toning's nice. I think in terms of if you're looking at going to nationals, maybe there's some area in the printing that could be, or in the file management that could be improved a little bit. But well deserved, lovely image.
Thank you. We're just going to change some mics over here. So could we have a blank screen, please, for a few moments?
Testing. Hello. Here we go.
Oh, I might get you to swap with Selena. Go? Wait a minute. Okay. Did you want to test? So that we had a judges change. So I brought Tony Holden in to replace Mike Langford again, and Selena Rollinson for Mel Anderson. Okay. We ready to go, judges? Thank you. Next print, please. This image has scored 77. David, do you have a quick word?
Yeah, the subject is kind of a bit lifeless for the scene. I think I love the colours with the red and the blue, but she's just sort of in her own world and doesn't really convey too much. So it's very complex, but it's not dynamic enough in terms of the subject.
Thank you. Next image, please. This image has scored an average of 74. And Jackie?
It's quite a nice composition and balance to it, but there's no real storytelling or sense of why she's there, and no gesture.
Thank you. Next print, please. Our judges have scored this an average of 74. Tony?
Yeah, look, it's a very interesting subject matter. What takes it away for me is that highlight on the left-hand side. It just really needs to be toned down. There's an image there, but needs a bit of work.
Thank you. Next image, please. This image has scored an average of 74. And Chris, would you make a comment, please?
Yep, I'd love to see a little more around this image, particularly the kind of extension on the pole that the man's holding, just to get a little more context. I think it's a professionally presented image. I just want to see a little bit more around it to really place it and get that connection.
Thank you. Next image, please. This image has scored 74. Jackie, could you make a comment, please?
Perhaps a reflection in a window, but ultimately where we get led to is very not unsharp, and sharpness doesn't. It's just very grainy, and it's distracting and pulls me out of that connection.
Thank you. Next print, please. We have an average of 74. Tony?
The image, when you get up and see it closely, it's those little black lines from here, they're birds, and it just needs a little bit more work. I find the image a little bit flat, and I need more of a story. I'm not connecting.
Thank you. We might have a quick judge change. And Adam, would you mind stepping in for Chris? Next image, please. This image has scored 75. David, would you have a word for this one, please?
Yeah, I quite enjoy the scene and the overall feel, but they're just the subject matter is, I mean, people taking a selfie or looking at their phone is so commonplace that it's not unique enough. I want some sort of message, some sort of irony, some sort of juxtaposition, some sort of any interest whatsoever. It's just not interesting enough.
Thank you. Next image, please. We have a silver award at 82. And Selena.
We on? Awesome. This is a very interesting little image. I found myself actually sitting here wondering how it was done. And I think that's possible. That's why I've scored it, sort of in that silver range, because it was intriguing to me. So very well seen by the author. The only things that, in terms of what I could bothered me were just a couple of those elements on the wall in the background that, which is obviously part of the scenery anyway, but they don't obviously add to the image. And so, if there had have been either that not there or something else that had have contributed to that, I probably would have gone higher.
Thank you. Next image, please. This image has scored almost unanimously 74. Tony.
It's a nice print. There's some nice detail in it. It's been well printed, but there's no story. I want to go down those stairs and see something, and I'm just not seeing anything.
Thank you. Next print, please. Selena? Oh, there we go. This is 78. And Adam, yes.
Some challenging conditions to work in, and well seen. There's a nice little interplay going on between the humans and the animals. I find there's a bit of a block in that in the front there, and the lighting I think doesn't really sort of draw me into the image as I really want to be, and sort of really emphasise that story that I want to see in there. But well seen and good professional practice.
Thank you. Next print, please. This image has scored 67. Jackie?
Perhaps an inappropriate technique with the opposite vignette for a sort of a moment like this, and there's too much space. It needed to be cropped in, a sense of where you are, and not so much water.
Thank you. Next print, please. This image has scored an average of 78. Adam? Yep.
Again, there's a nice little interplay between the cold and the warm sort of tones that are shown. Not sure that it goes anything beyond that. It is well seen and good professional practice. Take it up to the next award level. I think we need that little bit something extra to push it up there.
Thank you. Next print, please. We have an average of 79. And I'll ask Jackie, would you like to comment here, please?
What kept me out of going to that silver range was just that the merger of the pot with the left-hand side. There was just a movement to the left would have given that separation and the whole narrative to have made a little bit more sense.
Thank you. Next image, please. This image has scored 77. And while Tony has a word, I might swap David for Mike Langford.
Look, this is a good capture. Interesting subject. Just he's fishing, but I want to see a little bit more.
Thank you. Next print, please. Just wait a minute. Oh, you're up. Okay. This image has scored 76. And I'll get Mike Langford on 75 to have a word.
Correctly earlier that perspective corrections were allowed in this category. If that's the case, then that really should have been done.
Thank you. Next image, please. Scored 77. And we have a challenge from Adam on 83. You've got ranges of scores from 71, 75, 78, 76.
When we talked about travel photography at the top of the thing, we're talking about evoking the mood of an area or something. It's not just something that everybody else can see. And what I see here is a really interesting capture that really it captures the mood of the area we're in without it being thrust into your face. And yet the elements are all there in the reflection. The little reeds at the top are really nice and sharp. They're well defined. And then we come down into what would be normally the main scene that's kind of a little bit distorted, but it's a little bit creepy, a little bit moody. And I think we're not talking about hitting dizzy heights here, but I think we should reward the photographer for the innovation and what they're doing in taking what may well be a typical, like if it's a jungle or some sort of bush scene, and seeing it well, it to us in a different light and handling everything within that frame quite well.
Mike on 71.
Yeah, look, unfortunately I can see the screen behind you from here, and I'm looking at the print, and I'm judging the print, and I'm looking at this and saying, gee, I wish I could see all that detail that I can see on the big screen, because I can't, which means printing-wise, it's actually not of a professional standard. It's muddy, it's dark, it's missing information that I really want to be given.
Jackie on 78.
I concur with that. I think we need it just missing out in those shadow details, and if it's reprinted and so that we can feel that emotion that you're getting, I'm sure it will come up.
And Adam, right of reply, please.
I think, like as we said, we are judging the print, and if we had never have looked at the television, we wouldn't have known that shadow detail was there, and we would have known that this was mood that was deliberately evoked to be dark and to be moody, and things are allowed to be dark within the scene to sort of You know, we don't have to have that shadow detail. We want to keep that mystery within the image. This is that's what I get from. I get that mystery, and that's why I enjoy that shadow detail through there. And had I never looked at the screen, I would have never sort of been bothered to sort of force that upon my interpretation. So I think it's an innovative way of showing mood, of showing place and detail all within the one frame, and showing it to us not in the way that we normally see it. I'm asking for a low silver. I think we can get it there.
Thank you. So, Adam, your score of 83 will stand. Everyone else has the opportunity to rescore, please. Well done, Adam. We have a silver award at 80. Next image, please. Sorry, judges, my screen's just doing a little bit of a play there. 78. And we might ask Jackie to have a word with this one.
It's quite intriguing seeing these little figures and the bird on the head of the figure. It would have been nice to have had a bit more separation from that, dark against light, or yeah, that's about it.
Thank
Just a bit
you.
more atmosphere.
Please. We have a silver award at 83. And I'm going to ask Mike to comment on that one while I might swap you with Mel for
Just a small suggestion that a slightly lower angle would have put up more of that information against the sky and made that contrast even stronger.
Thank you. Okay. Come on, sorry. I'm just updating the judges on here while Mel's... That's all right. Absolutely. This iPad isn't keeping up with us. We ready? Okay. Next print, please. This image has scored an average of 77. And we have a challenge from Mike Langford on 82. Yours 75, 75, 77, 78.
Okay, what works for me with this is the two birds around the two sheep, because that drags your eye to that part of the picture, and that's pretty successful. But also, if you look at the two sheep, they're in the centre of the landscape interest. So everything's pointing to the left, including the other sheep that are coming to the left as well. So as a construction of light against dark and angles pointing to angles, it's actually very successful. Subtle, but very successful.
Okay. Tony, you were nodding there, so you were sitting on 75?
Yeah, I was sitting on 75. I like, I wanted to like the image, and maybe I was a little bit harsh, and Mike might have convinced me to raise my score.
And Mel on 77.
Yeah, I really enjoy the sheep, and I really enjoy the. I've not meant to use enjoy, and I really enjoy the birds and the sheep and that area. For me, I actually see it as two separate images. I understand the sheep on the right are pointing into the sheep on the left, but I'm just drawn constantly because of all those leading lines into those sheep and birds, which is, I actually find the right-hand side quite distracting. So I would love this to just be a where I'm drawn straight into those sheep, but I'm listening.
Okay, so Mike, I might give you right of reply now so that you can try and convince them.
Sure. Well, in actual fact, you're right, because a square would have been absolutely fantastic. But we haven't got a square; we've got a rectangle, and we're having to cope with the rectangle. And in that sense, if you take away the sheep on the right, it's an incomplete picture. They have to balance that. They have to be there to lead. The background landscape has to be there as a blank to put the sheep against. Otherwise, it wouldn't work either. So all these elements that we're talking about, sure, I can go gold if we crop it to a square, but we haven't. So I'm saying silver with what we've got. And I'm not allowed to like sheep.
For those in live view, Mike comes from New Zealand. Okay. So Mike's score of 82 stands. If you'd like to rescore now, that would be great. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a clear silver award at 81. Could I have a blank screen? We're just going to take coffee orders very quickly. Next print, please. We have a silver award at 81. And Selena, you're right on the average there at 81.
Yeah, this is a lovely image to actually look at. You know, the way that the building's been defined and is nice and sharp in the middle and is that central point of focus provides a really nice central piece, obviously, to look at. My only suggestion would be just to not burn down your other highlights too much, because I do feel it's almost some of those other highlights around the outside are a bit muddy. And yeah, drop the vignette. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Next image, please. This image is scored 79. And I might ask, you can't challenge, I'm afraid. Yeah, you're going to word? Yep. Adam's going to come in.
Yeah, look, I really wanted to actually get this up into the award, and I was just sort of blocked. I guess, you know, it's really well composed, except the happenstance of where you are. It means you can't control where the figure lies and where the big highlight lies in the lighting you have. But I guess that's the game that we're in here, is that, you know, you need to find a way of getting that figure just out of the muddiness in that little bit of the window, because there's some lots of really nice elements within this frame that really tell a story, and it's just that little bit that I wanted to push me up.
Thank you. Next image, please. Okay, we have a silver award at 81, and we have a challenge from Adam sitting on 87. And you have two in the 78, 76, but then the others are all...
I'm not going to say the word enjoy. There's some challenging conditions here that we're looking at first of all, and I think the print is beautifully handled, like really nice tonal palette. The shadows are where you want them to be. There's detail where I want them to be in the sign and in the brickwork. The figure has that lovely silhouetted quality, though, that's handled very well, and we're drawn straight into that. Like, I mean, that's the central figure. But there's the storytelling element of what's going on around this, who's so perfectly framed within, you know, the dreg work of the day. Everybody else gets to go out and on the boats, and you can see them in the top right-hand corner, and sort of all the way into the distance you can see the other people going out and doing the stuff out there. And this is this solitary figure looking out into the distance. It's so simple, but it's so well captured, and the storytelling that's within this is one of the stronger bits of sort of storytelling that we can see just through the placement in the frame, the tonality that's been used in the frame, and all the elements that are left there. And I think that's worth rewarding if not, I'm in a silver distinction. So if you can't come up to there, at least a high silver to reward, I think, what's a very well crafted and carefully composed image.
Mel on 76.
So I'm in the professional practice area. I love the positioning of that figure. I think that is absolutely stunning. I like the shadows. I like all of those elements in that foreground. I guess what brought me down, into professional practice, I really struggled with the horizon line. You know, it is so close to that top and it just drags me up there. So I wanted instantly that to be cropped down because then my eyes would continue. I also wanted, in terms of the colour palette, I wanted that a little bit more delicate because it's already got elements of the delicateness in there, but I just think it could be enhanced a little bit more. So that's kind of why I'm sitting around that area. But I agree, the shadows, the highlights, sort of the washing and the position of that figure are beautiful. It was just those other elements to me that brought me down.
Mike on 83.
I'm thinking of coming up because the more I'm looking at this, the more I like it. All the elements that you've just spoken of, I totally agree with you, but not to the extent that you're giving them marks. So the only concern I've got, because I believe that horizon line should be, and it would be stronger if it was, a bit more space at the bottom would help it as well, with the shadows being left entirely in would have made it stronger. But I'm just being picky, so I'm going up to a silver with distinction.
Okay, so Adam, would you like your right of reply?
I think what I enjoy about the crop, especially, is that it gives you enough information to tell you what's there. So we see the shoreline, so we know what sort of context is. Is it an ocean? Is it a river? Is it a lake? We've got the context through there, and just enough to give us that. And then same at the bottom is that there's that tension that we're sort of almost, we're hemmed into this, and everything about this is sort of squishing him into that little shape. As far as the palette, I think it is really delicate up the top, where in the nice, let's call it the nice part, where the aspirational part of the image, and it's really harsh in the poor part of the image, and that's how I read it. That's I read this as something that he's sort of almost let's not say pining for the fjords, but it's a thing. He's left with all the dirty washing while everybody else goes out to do the good stuff, and that's how I read it. And it's that's what it communicates to me, and I think it communicates it very, very well. Come up with me.
Okay, Adam's score of 87 will stay. Let's see how the judges rescore. We have a silver with distinction at 85. Next image, please. This image has scored an average of 78. And Adam on 76.
I think it's a good professionally shot image. I think there's an image within this image that's there that it's the top that distracts me, the door and entryway. If we, and if the author has any other frames, even perhaps that could be cropped so you just get that geometric staircase. And there's wonderful look. All those people are sort of so preoccupied with not falling down this staircase, and some have, and some are balancing, and so there's a great little story in that part of the frame, but I'm just distracted by the other elements. So if there's other frames that look going forward to happen, maybe it's something worth considering.
Thank you. Next image, please. We have a silver award at 82. And Micah on 84.
I do believe that this would be even better had it not had the lights at the bottom, a slight cropping on either side, and it could be a silver with distinction.
Thank you. Next image, please. This image has scored 76. And Adam, while you have a word to this one, if you don't mind. Selena, can I swap you, please, with Leslie?
It's professionally captured and seen, but I'm not sure that where there's anything that's been brought to this image that elevates it into an award standard. But it is a scene, captured and reflects the moment in time and professionally presented.
Thank you kindly. All right. Next image, please. This image has scored 76. Tony, you were right on there.
Yeah, look, I wanted a little bit more. There's an interesting scene here. There's the animal on the right hand side. I can't make out whether it's a dog or a cat, but there's something there. But it's just that it's a bit muddy. The print's a bit muddy for me, and I just would like to see a little bit more technical work done in the printing.
Thank you. Next image, please. We have an average score of 77. And Leslie, would you have a word, please?
Great location, and I think it's been very competently handled in the travel category. I particularly like the placement of the yellow little arrow at the end, but apart from that, I think there is too much dominance on the actual pillars of the bridge.
Thank you. Next image, please. We have a silver award at 80. Adam, yep.
First of all, to the entrance, I reckon it's an absolute crack of a print, because I think there's an inherent softness in the front of those trees that's been handled exceptionally well. It doesn't sort of distract from the main image. It's got a beautiful sense, so the working and the handling leads you right in, and it's got a good tonal palette and everything. So well done to the author.
Next image. We have an average score of 77. And Melissa, if you could have a word, I might swap Tony and David over, please.
Yeah, I think it's a well captured moment. I'd love to see a little bit more reference to show me what is surrounding this area. But I think it's well captured and it sits in professional practice.
Thank you kindly. Next image, please. This image has scored 78. And Mike, would you like to?
This would do quite a bit better if it wasn't so muddy. It's actually printed too dark. There's no whites in there, and there should be whites in there.
Thank you. Next image, please. We have a silver award at 83. And I might get David to talk. And in the meantime, Adam, would you swap with Chris, please?
I think it's beautiful and restrained, and that sand blowing off the top creates the extra bit of movement that we really look for something other than just the static, and also the repetition of the of the sand dunes. I just think it's a really beautiful, and it's very well printed as well. It's really lovely.
Excellent. Next image, please. We have a silver award at 83. And Mike, you're actually up on 86.
I think this could do even better. Just a slight toning down of the highlights at the top of the image would certainly keep your eye on the frame. It could do much better.
Next image, please. We have a silver award by majority, 80. Mel, you're sitting on 81?
Yeah, I put this into the silver range. I think there's something quite engaging with the composition, the reflection of the gentleman and the engagement and the communication with the gentleman in the background. I think it's got a lot of intriguing elements and it commands attention. So well done.
Next image, please. This image has scored 79, and we have a challenge from Mike. It's up on 88. And Mike, you've got 78, 78, 78, 75.
It's great, isn't it? We get to look at it longer. I might pause. There's a real strength in this image. It's original. It makes you look at it. It's so graphic. The colour is so intentional. That palette has been crafted. The architectural look has been crafted. Everything's absolutely perfect. It's not a snap. This is a very, very well constructed, highly intelligent, highly skillful piece of seeing. It's worth looking at again, isn't it?
For those listening, I've got to wait till they all sit down again. Okay, Leslie on 75.
Thank you. Yes, it's a wonderful image of Old Havana, or could be Trinidad de Cuba or Santiago, one of those places. I love the central position of the old vehicle and the colour palette that's triggering them with the blue sky, and yes, all of the architecture in the buildings giving you a great sense of place. I think I'm just getting a little bit lost with so much going on from left to right, with the people, the background, the ones on the left, the ones on the right, and that is taking my eye away from the car in the middle. I really do enjoy the image. I will bring up my score. I'm not sure if I can go to silver distinction.
Okay, Chris on 78.
I agree with all those comments. I think the design in this is great. It's this great portrait of the car and all the stuff that supports it, and the colors are I love. Unfortunately, what brings it down for me is the bike and the two black seats there. From a distance, that's where my eye goes. My eye doesn't go to the car. It wants to, but it falls onto those two black seats that are in the shadow of that building off to the side. And perhaps this is the moment and the car was there and this was a great capture. Maybe it was parked and that bike was moving on. But for me, the thing that's keeping me from moving up is the attention that my eye is pulled down in that corner.
Okay, Mel on 78.
Yeah, I really enjoy the colour. And I agree, Mike. It's been well crafted. You know, it has that pop art. You know, that beautiful Havana, those textures and colours and colour palette. There's a couple of things that led me to sort of the 78 score. I found particularly the figure on the right hand side that is just cropped with the foot, just looking quite awkward. You know, I just wanted that person cropped out, and then I would kind of have a sense of symmetry with the blue car and the bicycle and the blue shirt and the sort of blue shirt walking away. I would have also loved to have just seen that right hand shadow area, that cold shadow, just lifted a little bit, because I think that would have really worked in with those complementary colour palettes of the yellow and the blue. In saying that, I'm happy to come up into a silver, but for me, yes, I think this could go really high, but I would need some further work being done with it to get it there.
Okay, Mark, I'll give you right of reply and see if you can convince them into at least a silver.
Thank you. The whole point was I started at gold and I came down. You guys have started at professional practice and you're going up, which is great. All the things you're saying are correct, but when we look at an image, we actually look at it as a total thing, not just bits and pieces of things. This is photorealism. This is almost surrealism in terms of everything looks super, and that's the part that I'm reacting to. That's the part that's lifting me into distinction, not just silver. I'm not going anywhere not near gold, right? So just figure that there's some faults with it. But what it does deliver, it delivers beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you. So Mike's score of 88 stays, and everyone else can rescore if they so wish. We have a silver award at 83. Next print, please. We have a silver award at 80. David, would you mind?
Apart from the statement about, you know, the street vendors versus Ralph Lauren and all of that, what actually tipped it over the line for me was the statue on the back left, where is mirroring the expression on the guy's face who's having a little sleep. I mean, they look almost identical. I don't know whether he knows he's doing that, but he's just copying the statue. It's remarkable. Well done.
Thank you. Okay, next image, please. Yeah, I thought you might. Okay. We have a silver with distinction at 85. And we have a challenge from Melissa on 93. Now, as Melissa may have noticed already, we have one person down on 77, but everyone else is in the 85, 87, 80. We also have one on 81.
Just getting my mic sorted. To me, this represents everything that travel is. You know, you have all of the elements of people with kinship sitting there chatting. You've got dogs looking out. You've got people taking selfies of themselves and friends, people fishing, people looking on the horizon. This is what travel is. It is an experience where we go to try and feel something in ourselves and to experience something. And this has a portrait of mankind on this little rocky outcrop groin rock wall area. And they're doing all of these elements. It's a portrait of travel. It gives us the feeling and the aspirational nature of portrait. It's a silhouette. It's black and white. It's graphic. And it represents all of those aspirational elements that we look for. It's innovative. For me, it sits strongly as a gold.
Okay. Mike. Mike's sitting on 77.
Yeah, and I saw all the same things as you, and I celebrated them all as being professional. But I've seen them before. One of my criteria for gold is I haven't seen it before. It's innovative. It's all the things that I'm not seeing here. I'm seeing something done very well, very professionally, but it's not taking me to the next level. So from the way I judge things, this isn't a gold for me. In fact, unfortunately for me, it's not even a silver. But I love the space. I love the fact that it's black and white. I think that the elements in there that you pointed out, all the elements might take me into silver, because the timing's great. There you go.
Okay, I'm going to ask David, sitting on the average at 85.
I don't like being average, so I might go up a little bit. I just took another look, and I think there is a little bit more going on than I first gave it credit for, and I gave it good credit, but there's just a few little more stories in there. There is actually very different things going on with each, and this is a moment. This is not constructed in the illustrative category. This is the travel category. This is actually happening. So there's like a dozen little stories in there. Kid on the shoulders and all sorts of things. So yeah, I think it's actually quite unique. I've kind of seen an idea like this before, but maybe not quite so many interactions at once.
Okay, Leslie, I'll ask you at on 81.
Yes, I was seeing this in the low silver category. I think the thing for me is I'm not getting a sense of place. You know, when we look at rules of the category, a sense of place and the people and its culture and things like that. You might argue, well, this is a people's culture, taking selfies and taking the dog out on the pier. But I'm just not getting that extra level. I do enjoy the graphic nature of it and all those things that Mel said. But we have seen this type of thing before with silhouettes indicating things that are happening, and so from that point of view it's not particularly original, but it is a good capture. So I'm sitting in the low silver range.
Okay, Adam on 87.
I for all the reasons that you just said is what attracts it. Like, to me, it as a tourist image, this would be a marketer's dream, because look at the range of activities you've got in one concise, and every little element. You know, the problem with the silhouettes that we've seen before is a lot of the times it's a bit muddled. Sometimes, all it takes is one person to put an elbow across somebody else's, and it's gone. The whole thing is ruined, and every little tiny element you can see we are so far back from this scene, and we know exactly what these people are doing in the place. The thing that stops me from going gold is the kind of I adore the graphic nature of it until it gets to the end, and I sort of it's the little lightness and the sort of lack and the texture on that right hand side. That's what's getting up there. and I sort of almost want to put my hand over and crop that out, and then I'm absolutely in love with it, because, as I said, it's so well seen. It's not a manufactured moment. It's real, and it evokes all those moods, and we get it so clearly.
Okay. And Mel, right of reply.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when we're talking about travel, so we talk that it can be a location. It can just be travel. It can be we don't necessarily need an architectural environment or an icon. It can just be traveling down the world. People's version of travel is very different. And I think for me, what's really intriguing with this is all of these people, because you can see all of the little different community families as such that are going to this environment. They're all traveling to this location, and you know, then they're all coming together as a community. And I think in travel, that's what we do. We go for an experience individually, and we connect with other people, and we end up in this one location where we've gone to experience something personal, connected to the world. And I think this is what this is representing, that we're all there. This is the experience of travel. In terms of Adam with the haze, what I actually think that is I think that's the salt spray towards the end of the day, and you can see the chop of the waves because you can see the white caps, and that's the salt spray and just the spray, and that's what that whiteness is that you can see over that sea. So for I think this represents a connected community where people have gone out to experience something. It may just be somewhere down the road, but this is a sense of travel and adventure and experience where people go to be. And so for me, I'm rewarding it in a gold, and I'd encourage people to come up if you feel accorded.
So Mel's score of 93 stays, and everyone else can rescore if they see fit. We have a strong silver with distinction at 88. We might just have a bit of a judge change while we're at it. So, David, could I get you to step off and Tony step in? And also, Leslie, could you step off, and Selena and, oh, why not go the whole hog? Mel and Jackie, please. Now, this is going to take me a second to put these in. We ready? Next image, please. Back again, please. There we go, judges. We have an average score of 75. Tony, could you... Sorry.
Thank you. It's a nice travel picture. You get up there, I see the person side but I'm looking for more. I want more of a story.
Next image, please. We have a silver award at 81. And a challenge from Mike on 87.
There's a certain mystery in this that's making me go further, because it's making me go into the possibilities of what happens. So it's not totally defined, it's defined by imagination. And my imagination takes a whole bunch of different scenarios of what are they doing, where are they going, what's happening. And it's given me the space to dream in. And photographs do different things to us. Sometimes they tell us everything, sometimes they tell us very little. On this occasion, it gives us the space and the ideas to journey. And I think that's what I'm doing in this. And the journey is Silver with Distinction.
Okay. Yes, Chris on 76.
So when this flipped around, I particularly enjoyed that there are two sides to this image. The we're still in our home and then we're out into the future. What I wanted to see was everything being really well handled when I got up close. And the thing that let me down the most was the snow it's kind of gray, and it feels like the highlights haven't been controlled very carefully. That's what I wanted to see. That snow isn't gray. Snow is white. And I know that presents a hot spot that becomes distracting in the image, but for me that was the thing that made me not want to go higher. Now that said, the narrative I completely buy, and I think I'm going to come up to silver. I'd like to hear some more to maybe go higher.
Okay, Jackie's sitting on 78.
I'm finding I'm left too much in. Mike, you're enjoying this huge amount of narrative, but I'm finding the narrative not really giving me any a sense of journey or the destination. I'm finding I just want to keep cropping in to see less. I was seeing too much.
And Tony on 82.
I'm listening, Mike, and I get the unexplained of where they're travelling. I'm a little bit with you, Chris. I find the highlights a bit, something's gone on there. The other thing that distracts me is just on the top right, that line going to nowhere. But I scored it a silver. I think it's a nice silver. But let's see what you sum up with me, Mike, and see if you can convince me to go any higher.
Mike?
Yeah, the first thing is that white is never white. White is whatever it's reflecting. If it's reflecting a sunset, it's the colour of the sunset. So the statement or the feeling of the white not being what it should be, it has to be this colour because that's what's in the sky. So it just makes logic, yeah? In terms of cropping in, Jackie, my mind crops in because I follow those people. My mind crops straight into those three people on horses. That's the entire story for me. The rest of it is the journey, and the journey is entirely up to each one of us. I just happen to really feel like being on that horse going there, you know. The graphics, those arrows, those lines, those textures, they're all really interesting, and the longer I look at it, the more I'm finding this landscape, which is a really simple, boring landscape, is becoming interesting.
Thank you. So Mike's score of 87 stands. Let's see how everyone else scores again, please. The journey's come around to a score of 85 by majority, silver with distinction. Image, please. We have a score of 79. And I might ask Jackie to have 78.
Yeah, I'm finding, looking for that decisive moment, a little bit extra, maybe the highlights at the top a little bit blown out, just to bring back a little bit more of that story.
Thank you. Next image, please. I know what it's going to be, but I can't say. We have a silver award at 82. And Tony, would you?
Oh, I think this is a very nice story here. There's it's a great capture. The more you look at it, the more you can read into it. It's a landscape that's obviously very dry, very challenging. I love the little girl, or the little girl or boy, I can't make out. I'm suggesting it's a girl on the left hand side. As she's looking directly at the man pulling the cart. Yeah, I think it's very well captured, and I think it's a good solid silver.
Thank you. Next image, please. This image is scored 73. And Chris, could you have a word to this one, please?
Yeah, I think this is it's a wonderful location, and it's a good choice to capture. For me, the thing that immediately grabbed my eye was the blown highlight in that sack that's there, and it became really hard to look at anything else. Perhaps that figure off to the side on the left as well. this location, but if there's a capture where that the highlights have been handled, it'd be really lovely to see this location with that handled better.
Thank you. Next image, please. This image has scored 77. And we have a challenge from Selena on 84. Your fellow judges have scores range from 72 to 77.
Okay, so when this turned around, the immediate impact of it in terms of the colour and the personality of it really appealed to me. Then I saw the look on the woman's face, and all I thought, I heard her saying to me was, "What are you looking at?" I felt like I'm looking in on this lady who's either in her own kitchen or she's sitting at a table in her dining room on her own with all of her friends, which are all on the walls behind and around the sides, and they're having this dinner with her, and she's there and she's on her own. She's looking at us going, "What the hell are you looking at? I'm sitting here on my own enjoying dinner." And I guess that's what really appealed to me when I saw it. I sort of had a bit of a giggle when I saw that look on her face, because it just said something to me. It actually immediately communicated a message to me about what am I doing? I almost feel I'm intruding on her little space with her friends. So that's what I sort of rewarded, that's why I gave it an 84, because I felt that there was a story to this, there was a message to this, there was something to this that just appealed to me in terms of the sense of place and who she might be. There was a bit of intrigue, yeah.
Great. Mike on 72.
Yeah, I love the environment as well. I mean, in fact, this is an environment I love to be in because it's fantastic. I'm just looking for gesture. I'm feeling like it's a piece of robbery by the photographer, and sometimes you feel okay about taking photographs and sometimes you don't, and I don't feel okay about this photograph being taken.
Okay, and Chris?
I'm really conflicted by this image. At first, when it flipped around, I didn't see the main subject, and there are some really strong, bright or colorful elements like the green bush bit sticking up and the counters on the left and right and the little circle at the top, and they bother me a little bit. The circle's really close to the I wish it had more breathing room. The countertops are really bright, and I thought those are all humans standing around. So she's the last thing that I found in this image. I spent all my time looking at everything else. And then I landed on her, and she's been watching me while I've been looking at everything in this image, going, "Excuse me, you've been here for 5 minutes. I'm just trying to do whatever." So I scored it in 77. I'm coming. There's some things that bother me, but the humor, I take your point, Mike, about it being a capture that might not be safe, but there's a humor in the journey that I took as a viewer that I'm still enjoying now, and I'm going to come up to silver.
Okay, Selena, right of reply, please.
That's exactly what I loved about it, though, Mike. The fact that it does feel uncomfortable. The fact that it doesn't feel like we should be, like it feels wrong to be taking this photo. That's what I love about it, because it's like, and exactly what Chris said, you know, that there's all this other stuff going in, and yet there's this person sitting in the middle of this photo, in the middle of their world, and no doubt this is their world, looking at me going, "What are you photographing? Like, what are you doing here? Oh, you know, I'm enjoying my dinner. Leave me to be." So it kind of, that whole sense of uncomfortability is something that I loved about it, and that I don't think it needs anything more in terms of gesture. I think just the expression on her face actually says a lot about what she's actually doing in that space. I'm not asking for a gold. I'm not asking even for a silver distinction. I'm just asking that you guys reward the author for seeing something unique and different, and rewarding a story. I guess that the story that is being communicated to me.
Thanks, Selena. Well, your score of 84 stays. Everyone else has the opportunity to rescore now, please. Well done, Selena. 82, silver award. Next image, please. This image has scored 79. And Selena, you're sitting on 78?
It's got this is colour palette to it, and I enjoyed that about the photo. I think I felt like I needed something more. That figure on the left-hand side, not the pose because you can't pose, but the moment that they're in is kind of awkward to me, and I was trying to understand what was actually going on in that place. But I think it's a really lovely, well captured, professional standard travel image. Yeah.
Thank you. Could we have a blank screen, please? That's it for the travel category, everybody. Thank you very kindly, judges. Done very, very well. So we will hand it over. If you want to duck away the loo or something like that, now's not a bad idea.